Hey guys, it's Phil coming back at you with another video! Today, I'm back, I'm pumped up, I'm motivated. Hopefully everyone's doing well, practicing self-care, not letting one thought, one situation, one person take them outside of what they know to be true. And I know 44 people did just that, because that's how many people went in the exam, kicked it directly in chest, and got the job done since my last video. It's always amazing for me how many people rep and rock with the Fill in the Gaps community, how many people on this list were doubting themselves, shaming themselves, have done other programs. They were second guessing, they weren't even sure if they should be a social worker anymore. And they doubled down to the exact right thing. They went in the exam, kicked it directly in the chest to get the job done, and they are as follows: Keisha JP, Jeanette M, Jenny H, Ray, Brittany E, Nani, Nicole B, Stephanie H, Dawn P, Emma B, Nicole P, Clydia O, Samantha A, Jalen B, Januzzi V, Jessica B, Teban O, Sunshine P, Casey R, Natasha H, Monica S, Dominique C, Stephanie S, Miranda G, Nikina F, Alicia S, Terry W, Sandra P, Floor M, Amanda B, Jennifer E, Marla L, Tracy S, Christina S, Rhonda Z, Candace H, Hillary Z, Teresa M, Jennifer L, Sarah H, Charcy F, Renee P, Shamira Q, and Tyra D. And I'm so excited, man, because like I said, a lot of people on that list, they were doubting themselves, shaming themselves, tearing themselves down, and they weren't even sure if it was going to be possible for them, because a lot of them failed their first attempts, failed subsequent attempts, and they passed. And that's why I like to always tell people, do not let one thought, one situation, one person take you outside of what you know to be true, because a lot of people that I interacted with and a lot of people that were in the sessions and all these different things were like, man, Phil, I don't even know if I can get this done. And then they started absorbing and trying something different and doing different things to get different results. And they doubled down and did the exact right thing to go in the exam, kick it directly in the chest to get the job done. If you've went in the exam, kicked it directly in the chest while repping and rock with me, send me an email at berda24@gmail.com and I'll add your list to the shout out list. And from the bottom of my heart, appreciate every single one of you guys that reps and rocks with me. And like I said, I don't take it for granted. It's an opportunity. It's a lesson for me. It's a blessing for me to be able to do the things that I do. If you're like, man, Phil, I want to rep and rock with you as well. I want to get into study groups. I want to do tutoring. I want to do all these things. The best way to do it, like I said, is to get into the study groups. The study groups are on Sundays at 7 p.m. Eastern time until they kick us out. They can't kick us out. I'm the host. They traditionally are 3, 4, 5.5 hours long. The length of time varies because I try to give as much information, but also make sure that at the end of the session, there's a question and answer segment. So if you want to directly interact with me, I give all the information and answer every single question, because I never want somebody to come into my session and leave without all the insight that they possibly can. If you're interested in attending the Sunday study groups, the next ones that are coming up are as follows. 716, the defense mechanism. So going over the Freudian defense mechanisms, giving you examples, not giving you ways to memorize anything, but ways to actually apply it, to recognize it, to go in the exam, kick it directly in the chest, get the job done, and then review and practice questions related to those. The next one after that is 723, acronym and practice questions. So going over the acronym: safety, feel, and assess, refer, educate, advocate, facilitate, and intervene. Going over the 6-step process that I recommend every single person to utilize as they're breaking down the questions, as well as going through practice questions. And I always say, do not come into this session expecting to get every single question correct, because the questions I construct tend to be more difficult than the ones on the actual exam, and people don't believe me until they get in the sessions, and then they go in the exam and they're like, man, these questions were so much easier than yours, and I just blew the exam apart. So again, don't come to the session expecting to get every single thing correct, but come to the session ready to learn and obtain as much as you possibly can to build yourself up. Do not second guess, do not add, do not take away. Go in the exam, kick it directly in the chest to get the job done. The next one after that is 730, ethics, going over the code of ethics, going through different ways to recognize it and apply it, not memorize anything, actually giving you real life examples and ways to apply the information, going over subpoena versus court order, referral versus supervision, and then going over practice questions related to those. If you want any information related to the Sunday study group, send me an email at berda24@gmail.com, or click the link down below in the description, view more under the title, and it'll send you to my calendar, or the website that you'll go to is fillinthegaps.as.me, and you'll be able to register for the sessions. And if you're not able to attend the sessions live or not able to stay the entire session length, the sessions are recorded, so you'll be able to review it at your own leisure and at your own pace. And again, from the bottom of my heart, appreciate every single one of you guys that are repping and rocking with me and are attending the sessions. In addition to that, I'm bringing the Thought-provoking Thursdays back because we started it and it's been successful, and a lot of people are finding them helpful, and it allows for me to give you guys difficult practice questions and more practice outside of the one-day course, outside of the Sunday study groups, outside of individual tutoring. So Thought-provoking Thursdays are Thursdays at 7 p.m. Eastern time until they kick us out. Can't kick us out. I'm the host, so those are go as long as we need them to go. And those sessions strictly are going to be reviewing practice questions. So if you're struggling with breaking down questions, you're unsure if your process is on the right track, those are sessions to supplement the Sunday study groups as well as the one-day course as well as individual tutoring. The next Thought-provoking Thursdays coming up are 7:20, 7:27, and 8:10. Again, these are going to be going over strictly practice questions, breaking them down, tearing them up, and giving you guys additional practice. You want any information related to those, send me an email at berda24@gmail.com or click the link down below in the description, which is the view more under the title, or go to the website fillinthegaps.as.me. I'll send you to my calendar and you'll be able to register. In addition to that, I do still offer individual tutoring sessions. So if you want to wrap and rock with me individually, you want to go over your process, you want to go over practice questions, you're struggling, you're not feeling motivated to prepare for the exam, or you're just looking for ways to refine your process, individual tutoring is an easy way to be able to do so. You want any information related to those, send me an email at berda24@gmail.com or click the link down below in the description or the view more under the title, or again, go to the website fillinthegaps.as.me. And from the bottom of my heart, appreciate every single one of you guys that reps and rocks with me in the study groups, Thought-provoking Thursdays, and individual tutoring, as well as the next one-day course is going to be on August 5th, and it's going to be all day, 11 a.m. Eastern time until they kick us out. They can't kick us out. I'm the host. The session typically is 12, 13, 14 hours long, and again, if you're not able to attend the session live, it's 100% possible to get the recording as well as the materials to review at your own leisure. The one-day course has been the most successful thing that I've ever done because it allows for you to get the most amount of information from me, the most amount of contact with me, but also I tend to put the most difficult practice questions that I can construct in those sessions. So the one-day course is the tips that I find most helpful for people to keep in mind, to prepare for the exam, to go in the exam, kick it directly in the chest to get the job done. Most common reasons why people fail the exam, because what better way to know what not to do than learn from people that have made the mistakes in the exam, going through different topics, subpoena versus court order, operant conditioning, personality disorders, the medications, going over the acronym safety, feelings, assess, refer, educate, advocate, facilitate, intervene, the 6-step process, as well as breaking down practice questions. And as I always say, do not come to these sessions expecting to get every single question correct, because questions I construct typically are more difficult than the ones on the actual exam. So if you want practice, you're trying to build yourself up and understand whether what you've been doing is right or wrong, or trying to find ways to change them, the one-day course is what I would recommend that you do. And again, that's going to be on August 5th from 11 a.m. Eastern time until they kick us out. So it's going to be 12, 13, 14 hours long. You can attend live, or if your exam's before August 5th, it's 100% possible to get a copy of the previous one-day course. You can do so by sending me an email at berda24@gmail.com. And I hope to see as many people as we possibly can, because I like to hear people going to those sessions and killing the doggone exam, because it's always amazing from people going for doubting themselves, beating themselves up, to then subsequently going to the exam, kicking it directly in the chest to get the job done. For those that do not know, Audible will continue to partner with me on my YouTube videos and my podcast. So if you want to support me as well as support them, go to my Audible affiliate link at www.audibletrial.com/fillinthegaps. Sign up for the 30-day free trial, get you a free book, and it helps me out and costs you absolutely nothing. Audible is an easy way to get information on the go. So if you're busy just like me and you still want to become the best possible version of yourself, or if you're an auditory learner just like myself, Audible is an easy way to do so as well. So if you want to support me as well as support them, go to my Audible affiliate link at www.audibletrial.com/fillinthegaps. Sign up for the 30-day free trial and get yourself a free book. And if you're like, Phil, what book should I get if I sign up for the 30-day free trial? There are a couple that I would recommend. The Alchemist, The Archer, UOU, as well as Outliers. Each information pieces within that book. So each book is going to have different pieces of information that can help you progress professionally as well as personally to become the best possible version of yourself. So if you want to support me as well as support them, go to my Audible affiliate link at www.audibletrial.com/fillinthegaps. Sign up for the 30-day free trial. And if you haven't already, hit the like button down below. Thumbs up next to the title helps amazing social workers just like you rep and rock with me as well and find my videos. And if you could do me a favor, comment something down below, something that you're going through, something positive, or man, Phil, it's good to see you back, or anything. Just do me a favor, comment something down below, because it allows for me to understand that what we're doing as a community, the Fill in the Gaps community, is something that is on the right track and that you're finding enjoyment. As well as, if you haven't already, hit the subscribe button down below and the bell notification next to it, because it allows for you to be notified every single time that I upload a video. And I'll be announcing a free study group relatively soon. Kind of plot twist, it's going to be on the 22nd. So if you're looking for information related to that, send me an email at berda24@gmail.com or look for the video that is going to be coming out within the next couple of days. From the bottom of my heart, appreciate every single one of you guys that are repping and rocking with me. And for those that are like, man, Phil, where you been? Or man, Phil, it's been a long time and a long while. As you guys know, there's a lot of things that are going on in my life. My wife is pregnant. She is 25 to 26 weeks along the path. So there's a lot of processes that are going on with that. I was on vacation. So me and my wife went to Zion National Park, Bryce National Park, Grand Canyon. I'll probably put up a photo of us right here. So that way you guys are able to see what that was like. But as I was away, I was like, man, I want to get back to the community, or man, I want to share some of this stuff with you guys. In addition to that, me and my wife closed on a house. So there's a lot of stuff going on with that. And we're trying to find out how to do all of those different things. So that's a new piece of information as well. So just knowing that I'm not thinking about you guys. Like I'm thinking about you guys all the time and how I can share different pieces of information and different things with you guys, because you guys are part of my family. I love you guys so much and everything that you guys do and all the support. And there are a couple of things that have been going through my mind. And a lot of times when people are beating themselves up, they're tearing themselves down, they're not sure what they're supposed to be doing, or they're doubting if what they're supposed to be doing, it just kind of, it requires a lot of undoing, if you will. And what I mean by that is, it isn't what you prepare for that takes you out. So it's not what you are feeling good with, it's not what you're doing well with that is going to take you out. It is what you take for granted. And what I mean by that is a lot of times people, either they got honors in school, they have graduated with their degree, they don't think the exam is that difficult, or they're doing well on a practice exam, or they're doing well on practice questions, or they're like, man, I already know this information. They're half reading questions, they're using shortcuts, they're dictating how they do based on the results versus understanding the things. And that's where I always have to remind people, it's not what you do outside of the exam that's going to determine how you do inside of the exam. The strategies and techniques and the pieces of information that you review and that you get comfortable with are good, but you also do not want to look away from the things that you don't feel comfortable with. And what I mean by that is, a lot of times people are like, man, I don't feel good with X, Y, and Z topic, maybe community, medications, breaking down questions, or application reasoning questions, or all these different things. And they don't put focus on any of those things, or they put so much thought on those things like, man, as long as I study X, Y, and Z topic, I'll do well on the exam. And then they overstudy in that area or multiple areas, and then they go into the exam and don't see any of those topics, or they do see those topics, and whether they know the information or not, they're like, nope, probably don't know it. I'm lost on this. But at the end of the day, the answer's still on the page, and that's why I always have to tell people it's a process. Like if you failed the exam before, or if you've never taken the exam and you see people around you passing, or you see people around you failing, exposure is the biggest influence on how we are going to do things in our life. And what I mean by that is, like I said, I was thinking about you guys on the trip. So me and my wife, like I said, we were hiking. So when we were in the Grand Canyon, then again, my mind tends to operate differently than other people. So we're doing this hike, and hiking, if you've never done it, it's pretty excruciating and all these different things. So we're hiking down this mountain, and there's a lot of different rocks and different things around. We had hiking poles, so that way we didn't fall. But there's this one individual, well, there's two individuals. There's this woman, and then there's this man that was walking, and the woman's cooking, like running. Like I'm not an avid hiker, so she was like going super duper fast, and the man was trailing behind her, and subsequently found out that it was an aunt and a nephew. And what happened to the nephew, because he's more leery, he's looking around like, man, what's going on? So for me, I'm not an avid hiker, so I don't have a lot of experience and exposure to hiking. My wife likes hiking, so that's what we do. But nonetheless, I asked him, like, are you okay? Like, what's going on? And he says, I was struck by a rock that fell from the mountain just yesterday. And I'm like, oh, okay. So in my mind, my natural response, and I'll get to how this is relevant to the exam, but my natural response is, that's a super rare occurrence, so it's likely not going to happen again. Why? Because I'm not directly in the spot. I wasn't struck by a stone, but for him, he was constantly thinking that he was going to get struck by a stone. So as we're walking, he's still leery, looking up like, man, I'm going to get hit. And how this is relevant to the exam is because a lot of us have been struck by stones, whether it's failed by the exam, whether it's having barriers to take the exam, whether it was in school, we were not the best students, or we weren't the smartest or the standout students, or it's our supervisor invalidating us, or putting a lot of pressure on us, it's our partners, and all these things. And that's why I said exposure is the biggest indicator of how we're going to react, because this individual has done hikes a bunch of times in the past, but it took one stone to strike him to then believe that he's going to get struck by a stone every single time that he hikes a mountain now. And as we're going, He got past the part where he got struck by a stone, but he's still thinking, I'm going to get struck by a stone. There's no loose stones at a part in the trail, but he's still looking up as if he's going to get struck. And his aunt, who's hiked a bunch of times, was like, no, it's totally fine. And for me, I didn't even know the cat, but I'm like, you're likely not going to get struck by a stone. But I had to take a step back and say, it's easy for you to say you're not going to get struck by a stone, Phil, because you've not had the experience of getting struck by a stone. So when people are like, man, Phil, I'm going to fail the exam, or I've failed before, so I'm likely going to fail again, it's like you got struck by a stone. It's like you've convinced yourself that regardless of what you've done, that you're going to still fail. And again, let's say we had a time machine and we go in the future, that man is still, I would imagine, 100 hikes later, still going to think he's going to get struck by a stone, whether there's loose stones around or not. However, once the man acknowledges, I was struck by a stone, yes, but how rare is it to get struck by a stone, and what's the likelihood of a stone coming at me again? So that's my challenge for you, is there's 4 steps on how to undo this. The first one is you have to reflect on whatever has happened. Whether that's you failing the exam, whether it's you failing a practice exam, whether that's you coming into one of my sessions and getting your tail kicked, whether that's somebody telling you the exam is impossible, whether that's a program saying that you need to go with shortcuts, first, next, best, most, and should, feelings, gather information, CPS, APS, right to self-determination, suicide, homicide, you only need to read the last sentence, you need to do this magic trick, you need to go down these different shortcuts and strategies and techniques, and you'll be A-okay. So that's the first step. Reflect on what occurred. If this is you failing the exam, what went into you failing the exam? Legitimately. Like, what did you study? How did you study? How did you go in the questions? How did you break down the questions? How did you answer them? Did you second guess? Did you add? Did you take away? Did you have your cape on? Were you assuming? Were you doing all these things? Because I've worked with people that they're like, man, Phil, I ain't even got to read the full question. I already know the answer. Do you know that there could be things in that question that you missed? Do you know that every single question is unique, so you have to treat it as a unique experience? So that's the first step, and that's where, again, it's relevant to the person that got struck by the stone, because he has to view every hike he goes on as a unique experience. Every time you are studying, you got to review it as a unique experience. I have to know that who I was yesterday is important, but at the same time, if I don't take this as a new experience, or if I don't view this as an opportunity or something that I'm open to or willing to absorb, that I'll never get there because I'm always filling in the details that I think should be there, whether they're there or not. So that's the first step. Reflect on it. How much did you study? Did you overstudy? Did you understudy? Were you studying materials that didn't work? Were you doing things that were taken away from important areas of your life? Were you overwhelmed? Was your job on the line? Were all these things? What were the facts? Your facts are going to be your friends. So that's the first step. Reflect on what went into that. And if you've emailed me after you failed the exam, those are questions, because I answer every single email that I have. What was your process during the exam? What are positives from this attempt? What are things that you would have done differently? And what are things that you struggled with in the exam? And why I ask those questions, because it's one, going to get you reflecting and thinking about the doggone process, not just stuffing it and not just shoving it to the side, but truly understanding what was there. In addition to that, it'll give you an idea of what are some things you can work on, or what are some things that we can make adaptations to. So that's the second step, is to reveal it to yourself. Don't hide from it. Man, I sucked at this topic. Or man, I didn't do as well as I thought I would. Or man, I second guessed or changed a bunch of answers. Or man, my nerves were shot like a gun. Okay, so now you've revealed those things to yourself. You now have to make a decision. How am I going to respond? You failed the exam. What are you going to do next? Like, what are your next steps? Notice you failed the exam. It was an event, but it's not your entire life. It's not a death sentence. So be willing to reveal it to yourself, whether it's painful or not. Because failing's painful. Not getting to where we want to go is painful. Being struck by a stone is painful. However, if we never acknowledge what we've been through, or if we never give ourselves that ability to reveal it to ourselves, or to review it and identify specifically what occurred, what are some things that I know if I could go in the exam, I would pull myself out of the fire and say, don't do that. Don't second guess. Don't add. Don't take away. Don't assume. Don't take a nap. Don't go on a vacation. So that's the second step. Reveal it to yourself. Because way too many times when I'm working with people, they feel like they got to stuff it down. They feel like they got to be perfect. They feel like they got to hide all these different things. And I work with a bunch of people that have different presenting concerns. Man, I don't feel confident. What is making you not feel confident? Man, Phil, I'm beating myself up. What are you beating yourself up over? Like, what did you thought was going to occur? Or what are you expecting out of yourself? Are you expecting yourself to be a robot? Are you expecting perfection? Are you expecting are they realistic expectations? And if it's like, yep, da-da-da-da, okay, so you've reflected on it, so you've thought about it, put some thought, not just stuffed it away, not just, all right, never thinking about that again, or man, I'm super embarrassed about this, or man, this person over here passed their exam, or man, I lost my job because of this, or man, this person's threatening my job because of this, or man, I think I'm going to get judged at work, or all those things. And again, those are experiences you have, but how do we build on them? Because at the end of the day, we can have you stay in the same position, we can have you never get to where you want to go, but the only way to get a different result is to make adaptations and to refine things to what you need them to look like at this given moment. Because then the third step is to heal from it. Yes, I said heal, because a lot of us are going to suppress things, they're going to avoid things, they're going to prevent themselves from even doing something differently because it's too painful. I was just talking to somebody that's like, man, Phil, I've always been anxious and nervous, and then I built this confidence in myself, and then I thought I was going to easily go in the exam and destroy it. I'm like, okay, cool. But what made you confident? And they're like, well, what do you mean? And I'm not saying people shouldn't be confident, but what led to that? Is it fake it until you make it, or is there practice until you perform? Because if you're faking it until you make it, it takes one event in your life to take you out. It's always super easy to hide and put on a face that's like, man, everything is great. But internally, you're exploding. So you got to heal it, whether it's trauma from the past, whether it's people's opinion of the past, whether it's your past exam attempts. You have to forgive yourself and give yourself an opportunity to go forward. But you also have to be willing to look at yourself as you would look at somebody you care about. Because again, a lot of us are like, da-da-da-da. We would destroy ourselves in an instance. But if it's somebody we cared about, let's say it's your partner, it's your friend, it's your child, or X, Y, and Z, you're not willing to flip the table on them. You're not willing to be like the boy from 300 on them. You're not willing to write a diss track about them. But when it comes to you, one small inconvenience and you're cutting your throat right off your body. So you got to heal from that. Because the only way to reverse some of this stuff is to, one, have realistic expectations. Two, when things don't go how you want them to go, be willing to give yourself the credit and give yourself the ability to identify what went right. What did you do? What were the things that you were hoping to get, and what did you get? What are the differences between the two? And what do you need to see in the future in order to get that result that you're seeking? So heal. Promise you, it's not the easiest thing to do. You may have to forgive people that have hurt you. You may have to forgive yourself. You may have to forgive the ASWB. You may have to not let yourself get into dreamer mode of like, man, I should already be doing this, or man, I could have had this job, or man, I was going to do this, or I was going to do. It's okay to have those dreams and aspirations, but don't let them asphyxiate you to the point of you not living in the moment and getting to the moments that you need to get to where you want to go. So heal yourself. 100% heal yourself. That may be you doing self-reflection. That may be you going to see a therapist. That may be you just facing the demons that you know are there and are right in front of you. And like I said, it's not easy. But why I'm telling you this is because these are the steps I had to go through to get to where I'm at right now. And if you guys know, you know I didn't grow up in the best situation. You know I didn't have privilege all the time. You know I didn't have all these different things. But at the end of the day, I have to still acknowledge that those are a part of me. And if somebody brought it up, I'm not going to be like, nope, wasn't me. I got to bring it into the forefront of my mind and get okay with it. Because at the end of the day, I can't control what I went through, but I can control how I respond or how I react or cope or make adaptations right now. And what that will do is be the last step, which is refuel yourself. Because in order for you to get ready for war again, you got to fuel yourself up. Because if I tried getting in my car and there was a check engine light and there was a low gas light on, and I'm like, you know what? I'm going to still go as far as I want to go. Well, guess what? At a point in time, the car is going to stop. So if you're at that wit's end of like, man, Phil, I want to stop. I don't even think I should do this anymore. Man, I don't even think this is a build for me anymore. I don't even want to be a social worker. Man, I failed X, Y, and Z times. I don't think I can ever get there. Your fuel gauge is all the way down on E. But what you want to do is reflect. What did it take? Let's say it's your 5th time taking the exam. Who were you the 1st time, 2nd time, 3rd time, and 4th time? And what is the difference between those versions of yourself and who you are right now? I'm talking to somebody 100% because I know whoever's listening to this and they're rocking with me heavy. You failed the exam before. You've beat up on yourself. You're ready to give up. You're ready to give in. You don't even want to be a social worker anymore. But where's your passion at? Where's what you got into this field for? And where was your own moment? You got to celebrate everything you've done, whether it's a success or failure, because at the end of the day, in order to have experience, you must experience something at some capacity. But don't be willing to throw in the towel on yourself just yet. You're not done yet. You still got some in you. You got some energy in you. You still have the ability to take the exam. You still have the ability to get to where you want to go, but don't come up early. Don't stop early. Don't leave some fuel in the tank. Don't do what you think is easy, but do what is necessary to get to where you want to go. I'm telling you. Because there's way too many amazing social workers that have failed this exam and they're ready to leave the field based on one thought, one situation, one person, or anything. And that's what I'm telling you. Reflect on what you've done from an objective lens. I don't need your feelings in this. I don't need your emotions in this. I need the facts and I need what brought you to this point. What brought you here? And I bet you it was not you doubting yourself. I bet it was not you tearing yourself down. I bet it was not you willing to give up. I bet it was not you willing to give in. I bet it was not you thinking that you are the worst person on the planet. I would bet everything that I got that's not what brought you to this point. And I know it. So reflect on what brought you here. And reflect on what you've done. And if it's not what you would do right now, that's okay, but you gotta be willing to look at it. Man, I wouldn't have done this program. I wouldn't have watched these videos. I wouldn't have done this. Or man, somebody passed away in my life. I should have rescheduled the test. Or man, I was on a bad mode. Or man, I knew that me telling my job or me having all these things up to my neck was not going to be a good idea for me. Okay, now you've identified that. Reveal it to yourself and say, what is in my control at this point? What can I control? What are some things I can do? What are some things that I know I shouldn't do, but are natural to me? Man, I'm breaking down questions, Phil. I'm thinking about first, next, best, most, should. I'm thinking what they would do. Man, they would do this. Man, they always say safety. They always say suicide. Man, they always say homicide. Man, they tell me to eat cereal. Man, they ask me, are you safe? They tell me go down Farm Gertz Road. They ask me to do this. I'm doing the like method. I'm doing all these different things. But at the end of the day, did they work? Did they work? And if they didn't work, you have to be willing to give them up. I promise you. The easiest thing for you to do is to do the exact same thing and expect a different result. But the problem is you've changed. You are open to different things, but you're not willing to take the bet on yourself any longer. The person you were when you first took the test was who we need to get you back to. Because when you first took that doggone test, you had no doubts in your mind that you were going to pass because you had never heard of failure in your story. But now failure's in your story, you're expecting it to occur and you're trying to protect yourself from something that you're not even going through at this moment. You're not going through it right now. So heal from it. Forgive yourself and give yourself the grace that you give somebody else. Give yourself that opportunity. Give yourself that ability. Give yourself that time off. Do everything that you can in your control to make sure that you are the best possible version of yourself. And that may be you studying less. That may be you doing different things than other people. But again, I don't care what somebody says. I care what you think and what you know. Some people are like, man, this Phil guy's super loud. Man, he's always fidgeting around. But I had to own up to that at some point in time and say, that's who I am. I can't be somebody else. I can't do what somebody else is doing and try to be them, because at the end of the day, you know who you are and you know what you need, but you're so afraid to go with it that you are going with the current, but it's taking you out of what your current moment should look like. So then you got to refuel yourself. Why do I want to pass this test? Why am I doing this? Who's important to me in my life? What would I do to somebody that cares about me? And what expectations would I set on them? Would I tell them you should study every minute of your life, but knowing they don't have every minute to study? Would I tell them you need to study X, Y, and Z amount of time when I know they don't have that much time to study? No, I would make an individualized plan. I would make sure that they're getting their needs met, and I would stay true to the exact process that I know to be true. So that's what I'm telling you. The only way to refuel yourself is to do things that you know are going to recharge you or going to give you that motivation or that energy or that expectation that is going to be realistic. Because the greatest thing as humans that we can do is to try something, see progress, because progress is addicting, man. Progress is the most addicting thing on this planet. You're like, man, I never thought this was going to be possible for me. But then you start seeing progress. Don't run from the progress. Lean into it and don't try to replicate it. Try to do the exact same thing that you did to get to that progress. And that's the thing, is consistency kills. Consistency over time is going to combat all that negative doubt or self-doubt that you have. Because consistency and doing things that you don't think are possible over time is going to help you. And if you think you're letting everyone else down, I'm going to break it to you. People are not thinking about you as much as you think that they are thinking about you. And not to say you're not uniquely gifted and talented or important, but most people are not going to think half of the negative thoughts you think about yourself. And I'm speaking from experience. And if you made it to this point, I appreciate every single one of you and repping and rocking with me. But for those that know, man, I still have that negative voice from when I was growing up in my head. It's like, man, are you sure you're good enough? Man, look what that other person's doing. Look, they're doing better than you. Or, man, people like that person better than you. Or you should change up. And I still have those voices. They're like, man, no one's going to watch this video to this point. No one really cares what you got to say. Man, you're not even worth anything. Man, all these different things. Or, man, what is this person going to say? Or what? But I always had to, I hear them. And that's what I'm telling you. I'm never going to outlive that voice. But what I do now is I think about at least one person's life getting changed. I think about one person that is doubting themselves, and they go in the exam, and their life, their family's life, and their children's life are forever changed. I think about that person. But also I think about what I would need to hear when I was younger. I would think about what if I found someone like me on the internet, what message would I need to share? I also think about, man, there's one person in my life, as long as they never give up, they never give in. My mom. And for you guys know, she has cancer. So that's why I started doing the videos and all these different things, to show her that the investment and the sacrifice that we went through was not for nothing. So as long as she watches it and she enjoys it and things are good, I'm good, man. I am. So that's what I'm telling you, is most people aren't thinking about you as much as you think. Most people aren't going to say these negative things that I think about myself, or I think that people are thinking. But also, if you've been through something, don't try to be a fortune teller. Don't say, you know what, I failed, it's likely going to happen again. Or, man, I know how this is going to work out. Even before recording this video, I'm like, man, most people are probably not going to watch it. I ain't recorded a video in a minute. They don't even care what I got to say anymore, all these different things. But I'm like, just do it. Even if people no one watches it, at least you proved your thought right or wrong. So that's what I'm telling you, is get evidence for what you think. Well, build yourself up. Don't tear yourself down. Because if the more you tear yourself down, the more that you're going to prove to your negative thoughts or your stressors and all these people that have doubted you right. Because if you're vulnerable, or if you're in a negative position, or beating yourself down, or not the best possible version of yourself, it's a lot more difficult for you to actually show up and do what you know is right. So that's my push for you. If you're doubting yourself, beating yourself up, tearing yourself down, it's not what you prepare for that takes you out. It's what you take for granted. And I hear many social workers take things for granted, man. Like, most people don't realize that not everyone's able to take the test. Not everyone's cashed out and has money to take the test. Not everyone's state's going to let them take the test. Not everyone's got a clean criminal record. Some people got criminal records and they got to fight with the ASWB every time they want to take the test, or there's delays in their state, or, man, not everyone has access to all these study materials, or not everyone has the life experience that you have. So don't take anything for granted, man. Every opportunity, every situation, every second of your life is a lesson and blessing, because you're alive. Because there's people that are not alive. There's people that are looking at your life. There are people that are looking at you and dreaming that they could be where you're at, but you're just walking through like it's normalized. You're like, you know what? This is just what's normal. Normal for who? Never lose your appreciation for anything. Never lose your view of where you started. Never lose your passion for what you're doing. Never lose your vision of where you want to go. Never lose yourself based on you comparing yourself to someone else. Never lose yourself by doing something that you know you don't want to do, because you wouldn't be proud of it if you could take yourself outside of that situation. And that's what I'm telling you. Second guessing, adding, taking away, going with the buzzwords, doing a shortcut, doing all these things. Do whatever you would be proud of. You walk out of that exam, your head should be so high. And if they give you the results, regardless of what's on that sheet, you should walk out knowing that I represented who I am. So if I was walking out of the exam, I'd walk out and be like, I represented Phil Luttrell as much as I possibly could. Whether I passed or failed, at least I showed up as myself. And I would walk out and do the dang thing. Because people think that I just walked in the exam and rolled it over. No, I walked in the exam scared, vulnerable, and had a lot of pressure on my chest, but I knew that as long as I did exactly what I think is right, that it doesn't matter if I pass or fail, at least I tried. And that's where a lot of times people are like, man, if you had to take the test again, you'd probably just tear it apart. I would give it my best shot, but I'm not going to guarantee that I'm going to get 100%. So that's what I'm telling you is the goal is never to get 100% on the exam, but the goal is to be 100% you. So who are you representing? If you looked in the mirror today, would you be proud of who you are? Not based on the accomplishments you have, but who you are as an individual. Would you be proud of how you're talking to yourself? Would you be proud how you're treating other people? Would you be proud on the energy that you're giving out? Would you be proud of the energy you're letting in? Would you be proud of the people you're around? And if you can say yes, 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 and yes, good. But if you're like, man, Phil, that's questionable. Man, I'm not sure. Well, reflect on where you're at. Reveal it to yourself. Heal the areas that you're not proud of or that are taking you into a different position. And then refuel yourself and go into a different space and place because you may have outgrown, you may have upgraded, but you've convinced yourself that you don't need to be in those different spaces and places because you don't deserve it. But you went through what you went through to get to where you deserve. You didn't go to grad school or you didn't go to school to get your degree to just doubt yourself the rest of your life. You didn't go in the exam thinking, I'm going to fail every single time. But once you get your license, you'll have an appreciation for it more than the person that never had to think about what it took to get there. That's why when people are like, man, how come you're so passionate about doing things ethically, or how come you're so in depth on the code of ethics? Because I made a promise to myself that I would never make a decision that would jeopardize the license that it took me so doggone much effort to get in some way, shape, or form. So that's my push for you. Remind yourself, it isn't what you're prepared for that takes you out. It's what you take for granted. In addition to that, not one thought, one situation, one person, one program, or anything is going to dictate whether you pass or fail the exam. There's not a single practice question, not a single practice exam. The only thing that dictates whether you pass or fail is the actual exam. In addition to that, you need to remind yourself that you only have to be thinking about what you are looking at yourself. It doesn't matter what your boss is going to say. It doesn't matter what Facebook says. It doesn't matter what a video says. It doesn't matter all these things. What do you think about yourself, and what are you needing to do for yourself to get closer to who you want to be? In addition to that, do a reflection on what you've done. Give yourself credit. Be like, you know what? I have done everything that I possibly could to be the best possible version of myself. I represented who I am. I'm a good person. I'm doing good things. And at the end of the day, I'm going to do the next right thing to become the best possible version of myself. And that's all I can ask of myself. The only person I'm trying to be better than is the person I was yesterday. And that's it. And the only person I'm trying to be better than is the person I was an hour ago. The only person I'm trying to be better than is the person I was about 30 minutes ago. So that's what I'm saying. It doesn't matter what your friends are doing. It doesn't matter what Facebook says. It doesn't matter what Instagram says. It doesn't matter what Twitter says. It doesn't matter what another YouTube person says. It matters what you think with and for your situation. And that's what I'm telling you. You have to really do that work to get that work done. And again, it's not what you do that makes you who you are. It's who you are while doing it. And that's what I'm telling you. Don't let one thought, one situation, one person, or anything take you outside of what you know to be true. And like I always say, from the bottom of my heart, appreciate every single one of you guys. I love you guys. Honestly, I love you guys from the bottom of my heart. And if I can help you at any capacity, let me know. Either in the Sunday study groups, Thought-provoking Thursdays, the one-day course, individual tutoring. You're struggling, just comment down in the below. I'll answer every single comment. Send me an email at berda24@gmail.com. Go to the schedule at fillinthegaps.as.me, and I'll try my best to give you everything I got. I promise you. I'm doing the best that I can with what I have and know. Like I said, I got a lot of stressors in my life. I got a lot of lessons and blessings coming up, but I still got you guys in my mind. Every situation I go through, I'm hiking through the mountains and I'm thinking, how can I come back to these individuals and give them examples? But a lot of times people don't even take things in like that. Like I said, most people wouldn't think, man, that person got hit with a stone. How could it apply to the ASWB exam? That's what I'm telling you. I'm trying my best to give you guys everything that I got. Like I said, from the bottom of my heart, appreciate every single one of you guys. I love you guys. And I can't say it enough. I love you guys. It's always amazing how big this social work community is, the Fill in the Gaps community, and all those different things. And I'm trying my best to give you guys everything. From the bottom of my heart, appreciate every single one of you guys. I love you guys. You need anything, send me an email at berda24@gmail.com. And I'll see you guys in the next video. The rest of this video is going to be me talking to somebody that went in the exam, kicked it directly in the chest, got the job done on their first try. And also somebody that winning the exam kicked it directly in the chest and got the job done after repping and rocking with me on their 5th attempt. The 4 previous attempts, they weren't rocking with me, but on that 5th attempt, they sealed it down and grabbed it by the throat, ripped its heart out, did the next right thing. They went in the exam, kicked it directly in the chest, and got the job done. Sit back, relax. Hopefully you guys enjoy the rest of the video. Like I said, from the bottom of my heart, appreciate every single one of you guys. I love you guys. I'm getting out of here. I'll see you guys in the next video. In peace out, guys. Hi, Phil. I passed my LMSW exam on my first try, and I'm forever thankful for you in your study groups.
Hello?
Yeah, how's it going? How's it going?
Hi, how are you?
I'm doing well. What's cooking? What's cooking?
Feeling good. I passed my exam about over a week ago, on my first try. Again, I don't know what this experience is like. I took my exam in Texas, and it was the LMSW exam. So from my experience, the process that I took preparing for the exam was, I gave myself about 3 weeks. So I didn't study for 2 weeks. I actually studied for 3 months. 3 months, not 3 weeks, 3 months. So it took me that long. I'm a planner, so I started out by writing down all of the topics that I felt were important to cover. I gave myself about a month I was one of those that read the entire ABGAR book, and I know how you feel about the book. And I also watch like different videos that you have posted on YouTube's how to break down the questions. I did that while reading the book. And after I finished reading the book, I took the practice exam that was in the back of the book twice and didn't do so well. So if you guys did the practice exam and didn't do so well, it's okay. It really is. And I felt like, oh my God, this is not good. I took it twice and didn't do so well. So the second month, I started studying all the topics that I wrote down from my list, and that I had, and I gave myself about 3 to 5 days to learn and understand each specific topic. Like for instance, if I was studying for community planning, I would give myself 3 to 5 days to learn and understand that specific topic. For me, what I realized was that it's not enough to just learn, but also I needed to understand the materials. So at that point, I wanted to reach out to you by the second month for additional guidance. So I came across a video you had just posted the day before, reminding people to sign up for their free study group. So I signed up. After I signed up, I also signed up two other study groups, the one day course, and I believe DSM-5 children. I felt it was perfect timing for me because all the materials that I had, or all the materials that you had for the one day course, was what I needed to take me to the finish line. So by this time, I had about 3 weeks before the exam. And I remember asking you in one of those study groups, what do I need to focus on 3 weeks before my exam? And your response were to focus on what I felt were my weakest topics, and I did just that. I gave myself about 2 weeks to focus on community and research, and thank God I did, because I had a lot of those questions on the exam. But I want to remind everyone that just because I had a lot of community and research questions on my exam doesn't mean that they will too. So every test is different. I don't know. Mine just happened to be that way. So, and then what I find was helpful for me in my passing was that, let me just mention that I've known about Phil since graduate school. One of my professors mentioned your name during my last semester of school. So I love and admire how positive you are with all of us. I appreciate it so much. So thank you. And I remember listening to your podcast and watched your YouTube videos and attended your study groups, and all of which I took into consideration while preparing for the exam. I follow all the helpful tips that you had on what to do and what not to do. Your teaching style is super thorough, and I was able to understand and apply the acronyms and the 5W steps. I will say that the acronyms were a little confusing at first, but after taking the one-day course, I understood how to apply it on my applications questions that I had on the actual exam. So, what the question is really asking is just making sure that the question and the answer match. Because what I've learned from one of those study groups was that I remember answering some of those questions that you had, and I would get them wrong following the acronyms. And I'm like, oh my God, I don't know how this could be. I'm not going to do so well. But just because you don't do well on these practice exam or these practice questions doesn't mean that you're not going to do well on the actual exam, if that makes sense.
And what was that process like for you to not do well on a practice exam and then connect with me and hear less is tending to be more? And what was that process like to reframe yourself from almost like panicking, like, oh my gosh, I'm not doing well, to, okay, I'm going to trust myself in my process and be more kind to myself? What was that process like?
And that's really what it was when it comes down to it. Even though I didn't do so well on some of the practice questions, but then, when you would send out the materials at the end, the very next day after the study groups, then I would take the time to really break down those questions, just picking out what I needed to make sense of it, if that makes sense, to make sense of the answers that were chosen, if that makes sense.
So it was, rather than being like, oh my gosh, I got this question wrong, it was, okay, I got it wrong. How did I get it wrong? What do I need to make changes to? And how can I change my process to make sure that when I walk into the exam, it's the best it could be?
So for me, I think just breaking down the questions and matching with what the answer was what I needed. So not only did I sign up for some of your study groups, but I think it was a few days before the actual exam, I ended up taking the ASWB exam, the practice exam. So I took that. I did that on purpose because I needed to see how their questions were structured comparing to yours, and they're pretty close to each other. And some of those questions, and even so, when I took the practice exam, the ASW practice exam, I didn't do so well. And because I didn't do so well, I said, that's okay. It's just a practice exam. I tell myself it's okay. I just need to go back and see why I got those answers wrong, and to really break it down and apply the acronyms and the 5 W's that you have. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And I'm just mind blown that nothing could waver you off your path. You know what I mean? Like, you're like, well, I didn't do well on the practice exam. That's okay. I'm giving myself that grace because this isn't the real thing. And the only thing that could dictate whether I pass or fail is the actual exam. And that's why I'm blown away, because nothing really got you off your path once you got into a system. You know what I mean? That's why I'm like, well, what did that look like? And you're like, well, I just simply believed what I heard, executed on that, and let nothing take me outside of what I know.
And I think it took a lot of prayers, I would say. Lots and lots of prayers telling myself there's something to be said about the power of the tongue, because every day I would wake up and I would say, I can do this. It's just an exam, and I've taken exam before. I can pass this.
That makes sense. Like the power of positivity, like more positive thoughts, positive vibes, positive results.
Right. So, and not just that, but I'm one of those that have anxiety if something is out of place. Like for me, one of the things that was helpful for me was that I took everything, like I said, I took everything that you said into consideration because I have these anxiety and I know that about myself. I started out by a month before my exam, the actual exam date. I called Pearson to make sure that I have an exam on that date and at that specific time. So I called about a month before and they said yes, everything was the same. I called about a week before again to make sure that that's when I'm going to take my exam. And I actually went to this place to make sure that I know where I'm going, because nothing is worse than, preparing for this exam. It's already hard as it is. And to add more of a pressure on yourself and anxiety the day of, so I knew the day of my exam, I knew where I was going. I knew what I was expecting as far as like the checking in process. I've watched that video like 3 or 4 times just to make sure. I'm like, I have to do this. I have to make things as easy for me as possible, because this is my only time. I'm only going to do this one time. I do not want to come back here. So I don't know. I did everything I could to make my process as smooth as possible. And that's all I can really say. I mean, I will say that, because I didn't do so well on those practice exams, I didn't lose hope that I wasn't going to do well on the actual exam, because I just knew that everything was aligning. I just knew that I'm going to pass this exam. I just knew it. I just had that gut feeling. Believe in yourself, because there's power in that, I mean, that's all I can really say. That was my process, and it took me a long time to get there. 3 whole months.
And I think that's the biggest thing that is under-discussed. Like the most under-discussed thing when it comes to preparing for the exam is that mental health component of, I'm not doing what I expect out of myself. Mm-hmm. These practice exams aren't yielding the passing results that I want. But the biggest thing that got you through is reminding yourself, I can grow and learn from this. The process isn't over, and the actual exam is going to be what it is, and preparing yourself for that. I think a lot of times people particularly look inside themselves and say, I must not be doing something right, or I need an additional thing. You looked inside yourself and said, I have enough. I just have to mobilize what I have in order to gain confidence in my process. Right. That's the most amazing part about this is you did exactly everything right and did not let anything outside of the exam take you and impact what inside your exam looked like.
Right. So, and that's another thing. I feel like, of course, there are times when I felt unmotivated. There are times when I just felt like, man, I just don't feel like studying today. So what I did for myself was I watched a lot of motivational videos, a lot. There are a lot out there on YouTube. There's a lot of podcasts, and once I watched one of those or 2 of those, I just felt motivated again. And that's what helped me. And of course, a lot of prayers. That's what really helped me. And another thing that I also did was every day I would wake up, I would write on my notebook, why is it so important for me to pass this exam? What is the motivation behind that? because it was beyond myself, obviously. So I think I wrote down like 50 reasons why I need to pass this exam. But that was what was helpful for me. And I mean, really just do what is best for you, and you know what that is. And for me, like some of the things that I found helpful were, I'm a visual learner, so I had a lot of posters around the area that I studied. I had a lot of posters as far as like a lot of theories, a lot of DSM, medications, those things, because I would see it every day. And I'm glad I had those because I had those questions on the exam. So I hope that helped, help everybody else, because I mean, again, just because you don't do well on the practice exam, it's okay. It's not the actual exam. Take it for what it is and just learn from it and break down those questions. You know these things. We all know these informations. We just have to apply it. And, and I think what's important for me too was that I took everything you said into consideration. Everything, literally everything. You said, it was almost like in the exam, I heard your voice. It's so weird. I'm like, oh my God, this is weird. But, of course, there were times in the exams when I felt like, oh my God, I'm about to black out because I'm like reading 50 questions. So I would just close my eyes, because you really can't do much. You can go to the restroom, but you really don't have that much time. You have 4 hours, and there's going to be times when you're going to, everything will start to feel like, oh my God, all these questions are starting to look the same. So what I did for me was I would close my eyes, just give myself a minute or two, and then I will start again. And, if I'm reading questions, of course, there were times in the exams when there were long questions. I'm like, oh man, I have to read this like 3 or 4 times. So then even when I read it 3 or 4 times and I didn't understand it, I would skip it. I would mark it, skip it, just move on. I didn't want to spend 5 minutes on one question because I only had 4 hours. So it was a long process for me.
Man, I appreciate you allowing me to be a part of it and being willing to come back and share your experience with everybody. From the bottom of my heart, I appreciate that.
Thank you so much. And I thank you for, your one-day course was what I needed right before I was taking the exam. It was almost like everything was aligning for me because, I knew I knew all this information. I had the materials. I just have to take this one-day course to take me to the finish line. And that's what I did. So I hope.
And I'm glad it worked out. You know what I mean? Like, if you take anything from it, it's just keep building yourself up. And when you have doubt, push past it. And on that other side of self-doubt is going to be the success that you want.
And, I just want to tell everybody that, there's something to be said about the power of the tongue. Because if you tell yourself that you can do it, you can do it. It's very strange, but there's something to be said about that. And if you have, if you believe in yourself that you can do it, you can do it. And that's what I did. Thank you.
And again, congrats. And if you need anything, just drop me a shout, and I appreciate you coming back.
Thank you.
I'm here to talk about my experience of struggling to pass the exam and then finally passing it on the 5th try.
Okay, so I am going to be very transparent about my experience. So I took the ASWB exam here in Michigan, and the first time I took it, I had no idea what I was doing. I didn't know how to study for it. A whole bunch of people were like, oh, just buy the Dawn APGAR book and it'll set you straight. It'll guide you. So I tried. And I found myself being too overwhelmed because there was just a lot of information and I didn't know where to start. And I know a lot of people were like, well, don't focus on what you already know, focus on what you don't know. Okay, well, it depends on what you're focusing on, I guess. So I went in, did the exam, and I failed it. And I was like, okay, I felt a little defeated, but I was like, you know what? I'm not going to give up. However, I didn't sign up to take the exam right away because I had studied for so long that my brain physically just needed a break because I was over studying for this exam. So I waited a couple of months, and then I'm not going to lie, as we all know, going into social work, you're not going to be making bank right away. So I knew that there were other study guides out there that you could pay for and different programs. And I was like, no, I'm not ready to do this just yet. Like I can't afford it. So I may or may not have been desperate enough to go on Quizlet, because you can actually find questions that are similar to the ASWB exam, and that's what I had used. So when I went to go take the exam the second time, clearly did not pass it. Did not fail it by a lot, though. Like the first time I failed, I think it was by 11 points, and the second time I'd only failed it by 3. So I was like, okay, something's got to give. So I continued to try and find all the different ways that I could study to really pass this exam. But then I started questioning, why am I not passing? Is it that I'm not retaining the materials? Is it because of the way that I'm studying? I discovered that it really was because I was listening to what everyone else said. Everyone else said, well, don't study the night before your exam. Don't look at any of the material before you go in. I'm a very anxious person when it comes to test taking. And for me, I was like, okay, if I don't look at this stuff the night before and I don't pass, that's why. So I may or may not have been desperate enough after the 4th time. The 4th time I had failed the exam, I was very defeated. Like I started to question, did I even go into the right field? But thankfully, I have a wonderful supervisor who sat me down and she said, I want you to know this test means nothing about the work that you do with your clients. She said, this is a test that just shows that you know how to take a test and pass it. So I said, okay. So then I went on Reddit and I created a post and I said, I'm really struggling to pass this exam. Can someone please help? And at this point, I had actually, my parents, I'm very thankful for them, had allowed me to sign up for the Therapist Development Center, which I did find semi-useful, but I still wasn't passing the exam. So I'd mentioned that in this Reddit post and someone was like, you need to check out Phil. And I was like, who's Phil? And then they sent me a link. And so I checked all the YouTube videos and I was like, okay. And I'm not going to lie. The YouTube video I had seen said posted 6 months ago. And I said, okay, is this guy even helping people? So I just took a shot, sent an email and you responded. And I was like, okay, cool. So then I started signing up for a lot of the study sessions, the practice questions. I did find that I have a habit of memorizing things. So that was part of my issue because you can't memorize stuff with this exam. But I also know myself that when acronyms started being used, I didn't want to focus on that because I knew I would just focus on the acronym itself. So I really found that breaking down the question and asking yourself, who are you in this scenario and what is the question really asking of you really helped me. And Phil, I have to say your positivity is it spreads everywhere because you are just so positive. You're you can do this. So I'm doing the 1 day the 1 day training. And all of a sudden you were you deserve to be in that chair. And I sat there for a second and I was like, Phil's right. I do deserve to be there. So, I kept studying and I remember the week before the exam, I sat there and I said, okay, Megan, you're going to study a little bit. You're not going to overstudy because at this point, you know what you know and you don't know what you don't know. And it's going to be okay at the end of the day. So that week I studied on and off. And then the night before the exam, I may or may not have made a playlist on Spotify for music that was going to pump me up the morning of the exam. So I started playing that playlist that morning and I was like, I can do this. And at the end of the day, I really was telling myself, the clients that I work with, they utilize me for the skills that I provide. I'm there to support them. They don't know that I have failed this test so many times. They don't know that. They're still going to need me at the end of the day, and that's okay. And I went in and I was just like, Megan, you've got this. And halfway through the exam, I'm not going to lie, the one thing that also stuck out was, Phil, you were talking about not second guessing yourself. And I am the queen of second guessing myself on everything that I do. So I was sitting there and I was looking at the screen, and I think it was like question 60. And I don't even remember what the question was, but I sat there for a second and I was like, I'm pretty sure it's this one, but it could be this one. And then I said, you know what, Megan? Phil would be very disappointed if you second guess yourself right now. So we are not doing that. We do not have time to second guess ourselves. And I just kept going. And at the end of the exam, I'm not going to lie, I was so overtaking this exam that I had my eyes closed when I hit the submit button. And I was just praying to the social work gods that someone would just give me that word of pass. I only passed this exam by 2 points, but I did not care because I finally passed this exam. I slayed that dragon in the chest, and yeah.
And I guess if somebody was in that position of like, prior to you connecting with me, of like, man, I'm not sure if I can do this, or man, I'm not really sure I have a process. How did you scrap your previous process and rebuild it, not eliminating everything, but changing the things that you needed to change? What did that look like?
Okay, so I was very inside of my head. So I really had to change that mindset and be like, okay, I understand what I do at my current job, but what is this question truly asking me? That's what I really had to ask myself. What is it actually asking me? And so I remember just that feeling of defeat. Like I said, it was there. I was so defeated. I was like, why did I become a social worker? Clearly, I'm not good enough, but I am good enough. And we're all good enough. And we are capable of passing. And even if you don't, like my supervisor said, it says nothing about you in the job that you do.
And what type of work did you do to push past that self-doubt and believe the things that people were telling you?
I did a lot of journaling because I like externalizing my thoughts, and I really had to process through those. But then there's no shame in seeing therapists, everyone. And I saw one, and I really worked through that because I really had all that self-doubt. And, just being able to bounce ideas off of someone and to really have that support system, because I have a very supportive husband and family. And I had very supportive coworkers, even coworkers that had taken the exam and had passed on the first try. And it was funny because I did have one coworker. She's like, you're not going to want to ask me questions because I passed on the first try. She was like, you need to find someone that struggle bust. And so I actually did. And they were like, here's what helped me. And so we kind of bounced off of each other some ideas.
And that's the coolest thing is like, you took the fifth time like the first time, and then you redirected yourself when in error. You know what I mean? Like, you're like, wow, what is Phil going to think if I do this? And what is my result going to be? And I guess that's the wildest part is you're like, I'm going to take a shot and leap of faith, and I'm going to believe in myself for the first attempt and not chameleon myself into a position that I'm uncomfortable in. Like, this attempt seems like it was the most comfortable that you've ever been, and just destroyed it.
Yeah.
And that's the coolest part. You know what I mean? Like, you're like, oh my God, I'm not really sure if I can. And it's like, no, I know that I can, and I deserve to be there, and I deserve to be everything that I want to be. It may not be in the timeline that I thought, but I'm on the right path, and I'm going to get there.
Mm-hmm. And I just knew not to give up, because I felt like if I was giving up on myself, I was giving up on my clients. And how do I show up for my clients and myself if I'm self-doubting all the time?
And what did it feel like when you noticed that you were almost being hypocritical at a point? What was that like?
I was mad at myself. I was like, Megan, what are you doing? Like, you're above this. Like, we're not going to sit here and play the I'm going to feel sorry for myself game like I recognized I was doing. But then I was like, okay, we're going to be realistic about this. So that's why each time I failed the exam, I wouldn't start studying again, because I knew that it wasn't going to help me any, because I was already so mad at myself and all that negative self-talk because I had failed that I didn't want to study. But then I normalized that for myself, and I said, you know what? It's okay. You're not ready to study yet, but the time is going to come where you are going to feel ready, and you're going to look at it from a different point of view.
And if somebody were to come to you at your job and say, hey, I'm getting ready to take this test, I'm not feeling comfortable and confident, what advice would you give them?
It's okay to not feel confident, but you're not giving up. And that's the important part. And at the end of the day, it's just a test. And if you fail it, that's okay, because you can take it again.
And what if they were like, I'm not really sure, and it's easy for you to say because you had already passed it? What would you say to them then?
You know what? I would say, you're right. It is easy for me to say, but I've also been in your shoes. So
any other pieces of advice that you would give somebody that's either failed the exam and getting ready to study again? They are getting ready to take the exam relatively soon or anything in between, are there any things that you would say to them or pieces of advice that you haven't already provided?
In all honesty, trust your gut instinct. Like, I know it's hard because obviously when you take this exam, you don't know what questions that you got wrong. And I think that was the most frustrating part for me, because I feel like that's where all that negative self-talk started coming in, because you don't know what you failed. So I was like, how do I know what to study if I don't know what questions I was getting wrong? And like, it was fine because at the bottom of the sheet, it shows you like what percentage of corrections that questions that you'd gotten correctly versus the ones that you'd gotten wrong. But I was okay, that's a percentage. That's not like the tangible evidence of what questions I was getting wrong.
And it's like almost reframing the measures that you're measuring yourself at to actually see the size of your growth.
Yes, 100%.
Thank you for allowing me to be a part of the process, and hearing you pass is extra special for me because go blue. And Michigan is my hometown and state. So it's amazing for me when people that are from where I'm from actually walk in and kill it.
Yes, although I do have to say go green, but we're not going to go there.
Well, if you need anything in the future, just drop me a shout. And I appreciate everything for you coming back.
Thank you so much. I appreciate all of your help, and good luck, everyone.
It's my pleasure.